Hey everybody, it's July the 16th and day 31 of filming. I don't have a cameraman today, so I have everything jimmied up on a book bag and stuff over there as usual. Hopefully I'll get through this video okay. The last one I filmed cut off unexpectedly, so that's why I'm doing another one today. I wanted to just finish off what I was talking about the last time. So quickly, we were working on our back wall here, our gable end we call it, on an A-frame. And I set my boards into place. I got a couple more nailed in place there from the last time I talked to you. Obviously, I don't work at this as a full-time job, or I'd have this done by now, but I'm fortunate enough during this pandemic to still have a full-time job that I do from home, so I'm very glad for that. But this is what I do in my part-time. And when you put your boards up, it's with my first board that I started with, obviously I put a level on it to see that it was straight up and down also, as well as fitting within, you know, the measurements that I wanted it to fit as I put it up here. Anyways, this one here is showing level for me, so everything worked out really well as I worked across. All my wood ended up level. I just like to check that every now and then with that. And then I'll drive a couple nails in. We're just using little 1.5-inch galvanized nails. It's important on an exterior surface, if you don't want things to rust apart on you, that you use galvanized. So keep that in mind if you're doing any projects like this outdoors. And I know that my board's in place well and leveled, I just try to haul it over as tight as I can to the board before it, because as these are drying out, they are starting to shrink down. And I'm noticing even after just a few days of having these on the wall that the gaps that were looking really tight are starting to spread, and you can see sunlight when I look at the wall, you know, from any distance. So you try to get these in as tight as you can, but like I say, as they dry out, they tend to shrink, and if not for the protective coating that we're putting on this, if they got wet, they would likely swell. I'm just going to quickly put this on, and then I'll show you the next part of the wall here. So what I've decided to do is what's called a board and batten. So these boards go on as my first layer. I'm then putting that it's called boiled linseed oil over it, as I mentioned before, just to try to coat these boards and keep them from rotting. And then over top of that, I'm doing another layer. So I'll move my camera over in this direction here now. Okay, hopefully I have the camera rearranged. There's some that you guys can still see me and get a view of what I'm doing. So if these here, first layer, are called the board, I'm assuming that these here are called the batten. I don't know, but that's what I was told this type of wood is, or this type of wall design. So once these here are pegged in, they have these vertical seams going up and down that would still leak a lot of air and rain and stuff through them. So what I'm doing is I'm coming along now with these half rounds, I guess we'd call them. These here are from a lumber mill that when they're cutting up their logs, of course your first cut through, you're always going to have a rounded part, which was the outside of the log. And then as they go down, they get more into usable lumber like what I would have purchased here. These happen to be cedar half rounds that I have, so they're nice and flat on one side to work with, and on the other side is the original log. Now I thought this would be kind of nice to put on here because what it'll look like when it's done is a vertical log design on the outside, unless you're paying close attention and looking down here at the bottom where some of the ends tend to taper off. At first glance, this would look like these were all done in vertical logs, which kind of fits the atmosphere. A lot of what I'm doing here, I'm trying to get it blended in really nice to the woods around it. So this here one, then I've cut the angle already and cut the bottom. This is going to go right over top of this here seam that you see there in order to seal that. And then once that's on, I'll grab my level here. Now, the level isn't as meaningful doing these boards as with the original lumber, because these aren't all cut straight along the sides. I have a lot of variation with these boards here, and this starts to feel like more of an arts and crafts project than carpentry when you get into doing this here and trying to get these fit together. But I still like to check with my level just to see that I'm reasonably close, and it's actually still showing perfectly straight up and down. So that's working out really well. And then I'll see if I can hold this and grab my hammer. There. So I try to get my angle up as tight as I can to the top there. I should have no problem with rain or rot or anything at the top of these logs as they come down, because this here log is resting over top of them to shelter those. I've also used that same boiled linseed oil over all the tops of these. Now, I haven't done the actual front of these logs with the boiled linseed oil because I'm getting feedback from my parents who have used this on a deck in the past, and another guy on YouTube. I gotta make sure that's in there tight. Okay. Yeah, and another guy who used them on some pine log in his place on YouTube said that the boiled linseed oil actually turned his wood black over time. And that's not going to look nearly as attractive as what the wood looks right now. I'll show up close here in a minute before the video is done, but you might be able to see right here is one little section that I left untreated, just to show everybody that that's what it looks like originally. And then you can see how it gets a little bit more yellow in the spots that I've stained with the linseed oil. So right now it seems to draw the color out and look really nice with this wood, but I'm being told that over time that's going to actually get darker and darker to the point where it doesn't look very attractive after a few years. So I think because these are cedar logs, and cedar's a very rot resistant wood to begin with, I'm likely just going to leave these natural as they are. Try to peel the bark, as much of that off it as I can. But other than that, I think they're just going to sit there naturally. And I may do a little bit of that linseed oil down some of these sides here, just down the seam, to try to protect the side of these woods that stick out a lot. But that's about it. I think I'm going to leave it after that to look like a vertical log design coming across the side here. I forget what that's called, but there's a name for that type of a cabin, where most cabins are built with logs horizontal coming across this way. Some designs actually have them standing up vertical. I've seen them in old trappers' cabins and stuff like that, even here in New Brunswick. Now, also, I did a little bit of my homework for once, and the R value of wood, I wasn't too far off. I said on the last video that I thought it was probably around an R value of 1, and as it turns out, I'm getting 1.25 to 1.4 roughly for 1 inch of softwood. Hardwood is a little bit less, but this is spruce board. So I have 1 inch spruce board here. That would give me an R value of at least 1.25. And then I have these logs, which are obviously going to vary in width and where they come together, how much protection they give. But I would say I'm going to add at least another 0.75 for the R value of the logs on the face here. So now I'm getting up to an R2 maybe value in these walls, plus again the benefit of them just keeping the rain and wind and stuff off you in the, when you're in here camping. So I think it's going to end up being adequate. Now, if I do decide to do any more with that, because the gable ends were studded in with normal 2x4 lumber, what I could always do, I don't know if I'll ever find something environmentally friendly that I can put in the wall and know that it's not going to get saturated and wet and then turn other things to rot. So I'd have to find something, I guess, that would be a natural fiber, because I don't want to leave, fiberglass or anything like that down here in the long run. And something that wouldn't rot if it got wet. And straw and stuff, of course, would, I think, retain the water too much if it got into the wall. I'm considering seaweed because I have seen it in homes. If you go back to historic homes, over 100 years old, sometimes you'll get into the walls of them and you'll find things like newspaper and seaweed for insulation. I kind of think dry seaweed would be something that wouldn't absorb water and may actually provide a couple more, R value numbers of insulation in there. But if I do have to leave the wall bare or an open space there, what I can still do is go on the inside of my 2x4 studs, and I have some tongue and groove pine board. I could always finish it with that on the inside, and then I'd have maybe 1/2 inch tongue and groove pine board, which would give me a bit of R value, maybe 0.75. I'd have an air gap between that and my outer wall here. I guess that's going to help, you know, when you're heating the inside and the outside air is hitting out here, it's giving you a gap, an air gap in between that would stay warmer. And then you'd have this R2 on the outside here. So I'm kind of thinking I could get this up to maybe an R4 or something like that value if I wanted to go and do on the inside wall. But I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I haven't really designed the interior yet, and I'll do some videos when I do come around to that. So anyways, thanks for watching. Sorry last video got cut off early. We'll try to do better with our filming and editing and stuff like that. Right now it's a pretty rough operation still. But like and subscribe, and we'll see you next video. Thanks.